Hi to everyone. We're just waiting here, and we have a special guest here today for the Insta Live session. I'm so excited to share. Works. Hi, Bill.
Hey, Julia. Nice to see you online.
Everything works. So I'm so honored and excited to have Bill Tai here with us on Remind. And he's one of our ambassadors. He's going to brief with us in 1 hour on the app. And Bill Tai is for sure. Oh my God, there's so many things about you to tell. He's a venture capitalist, but more than that, he's just an inspiring human being. He inspired me so much. And one of the quotes you can find when you go to Actai, and I'm sure Bill will tell you a little bit about the Actai community, is a person's potential is greater than what it is, and that potential is only unlocked when he or she interacts with another person. So this is, I think, yeah, the words I can explain Bill the best. He's just, once he told me here's the spider in the spider net, and somehow he gives everyone the feeling of, I don't know, it's so easy to talk to you, right? So
Everything
yeah,
is possible.
give the words to Bill now.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, actually, so Julie, that story I think is a good story. I was throwing a summit on Necker Island that we call the Blockchain Summit. And we had a bunch of really interesting people ranging from technologists to government to people in finance from all kinds of different backgrounds. And I was in front of the group kind of coordinating a session, getting people to interact. And we had an economist on the island. And if any of you are into sort of economics, there's a quite a famous book called The Mystery of Capital. And what that is about and it's by an author named Fernando de Soto, who is with us on the island. Fernando became famous for really defining why capitalism works or doesn't work, and where it works and doesn't work. And anyway, so you should read the book because it's a fascinating book, and it's basically I can go into that a little bit later if you want, but he basically stood up while I was in front of the room holding his microphone, and he just said, "Stop." And I said, "What?" And he said, "I need to tell you what's happening here." I said, "Okay." So I gave him the mic, and he told the story. He said that years ago he had a quote from Aristotle translated from ancient Greek to English. And what that quote said was what is on our website. And that quote is that every person's potential is greater than what it is, but it's only unlocked when that person interacts with another person. And it took me a little while to understand that, because that first phrase is everyone's potential is what it is, but it's not what it is. It's kind of like, well, where is it? And as I listened to him talk, he said, this is exactly what's happening. When people interact with others, they are able to unlock their potential. And much later, as that phrase stuck in my head, I started to think of other examples that made more sense to me. And I'm sort of like a science trained person, and I thought, well, if you think about the periodic table, everyone in school had to look at all these rows and columns of chemicals. And if you imagined all these little chemicals sitting in jars on a shelf in the order of the periodic table, and they were sealed in these glass jars, well, nothing ever happens. But if you took a broom, you threw those jars off the shelf and they crashed on the floor and they started to mix, you'd have something. You'd have explosions, you'd have magic, you'd have, all kinds of things created, because every molecule or every atom has its own characteristics. And it's meant to be something, but it's not really unlocked until it interacts with other elements. So I started to think about, well, people, if you think about people, we all live in this gigantic web of interconnected people, even more so today digitally, because we're all accessible but it's if we were just isolated little islands that never interacted, nothing would ever happen. So I think, we're in this world that is increasingly able to provide the interconnections that allow people to reach their potential if they're done right, and if you're part of a community of interest that is a positive community.
So it was for sure no coincidence that I had this idea at one of this Actai come together on Necker Island. Because honestly, every time, I mean, we only have maybe like 4 days together usually when we meet, and it's so intense because it's so much energy going on. And every time when I come back of one of those weekends, I'm like, oh my God, we can change the world, right? And that's so inspiring. And yeah, another thing
Well, yeah,
I wanted to ask you is,
yeah.
how do you connect to breathing? And also, you told me once how you handle your work-life balance. So a little bit maybe about your morning routine, because this was very inspiring as well. Because you have a lot,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of emails coming in to your desk every day.
Yeah, and I guess a little bit more background on Acti first, and then the kind of what I do, and then how I do it. I guess, yeah. So the community that Julie's referring to, the Acti, is an acronym that stands for athletes, conservationists, technologists, artists, and innovators. And it is a registered 501c3, so we're a nonprofit, and we support a couple of areas. One is environmental conservation, and the other is economic empowerment through entrepreneurship, kind of like what Julie is doing. Get her going on a project that actually is a little of value to the world and also an economic engine. And we have a community of people it's worldwide. It numbers in the thousands, and it is like what I described, this distributed spider web of interesting people that are interconnected, that basically when something little vibration on the web happens, other people come running to come help on different projects, whether it's the launching of the Remind app, or we've done things like help catalyze the creation of a marine conservation area that covers 116 islands off of Western Australia. We've helped start technology projects that bring kind of modern data science and other techniques that are used to create companies, but for projects that are aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We helped run a startup competition for years called the Extreme Tech Challenge. So there's a lot of different projects that are basically an alignment of people, purpose, modern technology, and global goals around sustainability. And anyway, so because the network is so vast, I'm kind of in this giant web of all kinds of projects happening, and I'm also an investor. So I have a venture capital investor, and at any one time, I probably am invested now in 50 companies that are all going, and I'm not the main person in them, but I also start companies. So I've got like a popcorn popper of all this activity, and then we have the nonprofit Acti, and then we have all these other mission-based projects that are going, and I literally cannot schedule it because there's too much. So there's a lot of stuff happening with them.
I will not forget our call maybe 8 years ago on Zoom, where Bill was telling, do you know Zoom? You have to download Zoom. Let's do this call on Zoom. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is a nice new app, right?
Yes,
so this was 8 years ago. Yeah. So you have.
Yes, I did happen to be the first backer to commit to back my friend Eric Yuan when Zoom started, and it was something that, when I get behind something, I'm not the driving force that makes these things work, but I am somebody that I'm quite enthusiastic about the things that I touch if they're actually real and working and they're aligned, and I just spread them. And so we had many of the earliest customers of Zoom were basically people in our Acti community running their meetings or doing one-on-ones like Julie and I did when she was transitioning from gold medalist athlete to thinking about other stuff. And so my day basically starts, I'm an early to bed, early to rise person. I get up in the morning a little bit before the stock market opens on the West Coast, because it's the market's tuned to East Coast hours. It's 9:30 a.m. till like 1 something. And so or 4:30, 9:30 a.m. to 4 East Coast. So I'm usually up around 5:30 or 6, and then I start my day with a workout, and it's a little bit of a weird workout, but I do a couple sets of 500 sit-ups and a bunch
500.
of
You say
500, yeah, and that's a whole nother
500
story.
sit-ups.
Yeah, and they're not like full; they're crunches. They're more crunches. Yeah, but and it actually started. There was a time in 2006 I had trouble doing 4 sets of 10. And actually, this is a funny story too, because Julie, you've probably run into Ben Meyer. That Ben Meyer in the early days of kiteboarding, he was with Nash, and he could jump higher than anybody ever saw in that era. And I came from a windsurfing background, so my jumps tended to be like you try to do on a windsurfer, where you throw yourself a bit, and so mine were low and long and hard to land. And I would watch Ben just pop straight up and float down. I was like, how do you do that? And Ben walked me through a little bit of board position technique. And he said, well, you just need to do that, go downwind with it, edge hard like a hockey stop, and then let go, and then do a lot of sit-ups. And I said, do a lot of sit-ups? I said, what does that have to do with anything? And he said, well, it's all about your core. The more pressure you can hold with your core, the higher you'll go with the same motion. And so at that point in my kiting, I wanted to start to jump high at the time. So I started doing like 4 sets of 10 sit-ups. And I would do them every morning, and my jumps got a little bit higher. And so that was motivation for me to keep going. And there was a time I was doing my sit-ups, and I always do my sit-ups in front of like CNBC or like, stock news. So I'm doing my sit-ups, but I was in a hurry. And one day I just did all 40 at once. I was like, that wasn't so hard. So then I started to do 3 sets of 40. And then another time I was in a hurry, I just said, I'm going to just do 120 at once. And I did. And then eventually, after many years, now I literally, it's like sit-ups are like walking, where I can there's no end to what I can do. So I have to just cut off at 500. So I'll do 500 sit-ups, and then
So maybe you
I'll
can go for a new world record if you can go on forever.
yeah, and then in between that, and then I'll do like some push-ups, reverse sit-ups, and pull-ups. In between those little sets, I basically am on email clearing out stuff in the morning, and then trying to plan my day, and then I go out for a 5-mile run. And then on my run, I basically think through. I've got all these projects in my head that are on different time scales, and at any one time, there are like 3 or 4 things that have to get done, or something will fall off the track. And so during my run, I basically lay out what are the 3 things that I want to get done today, and really just only 3 things. And I try to limit it to that. And then if I can do those 3 things, I feel good. And then the rest of the day is kind of open to do whatever I want. And sometimes it's a little bit more work. Sometimes it's board calls, Zoom calls, more workout, kiteboarding, whatever fits. So it's a very free-form, flowing lifestyle. That's how
so you trust also a lot into flow of life, right? That's the right concepts will just come to you, and it's not about you looking for them.
That the flow of life is one of those things where I think it's really important to not have to try too hard. And I know that sounds really weird, because I have a lot of stuff that looks like I must have like really spent my whole life building this or that, or these companies and all that stuff. And there was a time when I used to try to teach my friends how to windsurf. And if you've ever tried to windsurf, you'll at the water start. If you've ever had to like lay in the water, hold the board, and lift the sail up and have it pull you out of the water. And so what I noticed when I would teach people how to water start was that often people would put their feet on the board and hold that boom, and when the wind would blow, they would pull it, right? Thinking that they'd pull themselves out of the water, and all they do is pull the sail down on the water, and you just never get up. And so I used to make everybody hold the boom, not with their hands like this, but with 2 fingers and a thumb, right? And I push their fingers underneath the boom. And what would happen was they wouldn't then grip the bar and pull it down, because they couldn't. And so all they could do is sort of respond to the fingers. And I'd say, you got to let the wind take you up. Never pull on the bar. Just relax and let it go, and don't try too hard. And so I think this is literally one of the lessons in my life that was the key to life, where I learned that if it's too hard, don't do it. And if the wind is carrying you, what you really want to do is you want to harness the forces of nature. So if everything lines up and you're always riding with the positive forces of nature, you're always going to do fine. And if you're trying to fight them, like trying to fight the wind and fight the water, you will always lose, because those rivulets are a lot stronger than you. So I spend my life trying to just figure out what will happen next and put myself in the position where the wind and the waves will just carry me. And I found that, at least for me, it kind of works.
Yeah, that's something maybe not everyone knows about. Like, yeah, maybe everyone in our community knows. So Bill is an awesome kiteboarder. That's how we met. He was a sponsored athlete. That's on your website as well. Yeah, it's just amazing to see how a sport can connect people, and that we have like talks, and everyone has busy schedules, but then we meet to just do fun stuff, right? And to challenge ourselves in sports. Right now, I try to learn foil kiting. I know you're already really, really good, and you're out there in San Francisco with your foil board. So I think it
I
helps a
can
lot
ride
to
great. I still can't turn.
just
Yes.
connect, right? To connect to nature, be connected to the wind, to the ocean. And that's how we met, like so many years ago in Maui. It was a super strong wind, and somehow I was I was so focused on my kite because it was so strong, and I almost ran into you on out there in the session, and then just Bill came to me at the beach and said, "Hey, who are you?" So we met. Yeah. So
Very
maybe you can tell
fortuitous,
us a
and it's
little
like,
bit about your kite sporting. What's your favorite spot in kiteboarding? Where is it?
oh boy, I really like Western Australia. There's if you go all the way out to Perth, and it's not easy to get to from California, because you've got to take like a 16-hour flight. I forget the exact path, but it's like 16 hours to Singapore and another 6, or you fly to Sydney and then it's like 24 hours of flying. But if you go out to that little far remote western corner of Perth, there's an intersection of amazing things. There's a beautiful area there. There's a cool little city. There's a river that flows through it that is, there's like 6 or 7 places to kite on the river. When you get out to the ocean along the coast, there's just a great variety. Leighton Beach, north of there's Geraldton, and all the way up the coast is Exmouth. All the way down the coast is Margaret River. I mean, you can
Quite
literally...
an adventure to go there.
Oh, it really is. And the variety's great. Yeah. So many things that you can try, every kind. Like if you want to foil on the river, you want to ride waves, you want to get big air. It's like everything
I have
you ever
one question
want.
for you. So did you ever have the moment, like, for example, in kiteboarding, because it happened to me the other day here, that you were like so like overwhelmed from everything happening? I mean, kite, foil, wind, waves, that you just thought, oh my God, I need to breathe and stop and center
Yeah.
myself again. It's just,
Yeah, I was rescued by the coast. So in like more than a decade of windsurfing and 20 years of kiteboarding, I've only been rescued by the Coast Guard once.
Okay.
And it was out underneath the Golden Gate Bridge, and a series of things happened where my kite popped and I got sucked out to sea, and the current was so strong I got spun around a bunch of times, so my legs got tied together by my lines. And anyways, the Coast Guard did pick me up. But that moment, I was actually relatively calm looking back, because I think I don't panic so much, because I'm not sure why. I think I'm a little mechanical thinker about, so I'm just analyzing what's going on. But I definitely was kind of in that zone where I just wanted to stay calm and breathe, and it's important.
So what does breath mean to you when you would summarize it in one word? So you're only allowed to use one word.
Karma. Yeah, and when we do our session, I'll explain that a little bit. But you're basically taking in karma and growing it and amplifying it and putting it back out there for everybody else. Good
That's
karma.
beautiful.
Okay.
everyone, I think, who's online here, we're all so excited to experience your session on the app. I can't wait. And yeah, we are just honored to have you as an ambassador, sharing your energy, your vibe. I think that's the power also, like this 30 seconds of silence after the breathing session with 1 minute. It's this power of just being present. And also, I'm sure you experienced many times also how difficult it is to focus. And what do you think about just staying focused for 1 minute? Is it difficult for you, or is it like an easy thing to do?
Oh, well, it's definitely difficult if I'm in front of a screen with emails popping and, if my eyes are open. But I think, that moment where you close your eyes and you just feel internally, that I think it's very sensory in a different way, and that allows a moment of focus that you just can't have when you're running around trying to get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah. Okay, so I would say thank you so much for your time. We could go on this. I know, like, Bill is a huge storyteller. He can like inspire us many more hours. And thank you for taking the time. And for everyone here on this session now, please go to our website. Just use the link in our feed, and you can see it in the bio. Then download the app and just join Bill in now 38 minutes.
Yeah, and I will say one more thing about the way this app and the movement that Julie is creating works, because it's not just about the individual breathing. I think one of the things that is very special about this is that it's the interconnection of many people. And she explained to me a long time ago a vision that we're nowhere near yet, but this could be the start of people literally around the world, thousands of people in every corner of the world being able to connect and breathe and share that moment together. And it's, that this kind of thing hasn't really been able to be done before until this wave of technology has enabled it through this screen. But I think, and different people are in different time zones, but to the extent that there can be clusters of connected people just for a moment connecting every day, it's something quite special. So I'm excited to see her journey and her ability to just get this from an idea to, here we are with apps in the store. So I'm wishing everybody on this call a great community breathe, and wishing Julia well on her app.
Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you so much for joining. And to everyone else, like, lots of love here from Greece. And yeah, stay tuned on the app. Every day you can experience a beautiful session. And yeah, once again, thanks, Bill. And I'm excited to breathe with you just in some minutes or 40 minutes. Okay, bye to everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye.